Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben, this is Books with Bengus Khan, and I have for you my mid-month check-in, and it's been a packed first half of April for me, and with just such a great variety of engaging reads, all 4 or 5 stars so far, so I can't wait to chat about it. It started off tremendously with Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I'd been patiently waiting for my book to arrive, and it was worth the wait. I'd been so excited to read it because I've seen so many people read the ebooks or audio over the last couple months. But now that I got mine, I am glad I waited because this is essentially an illustrated edition. And the art was so good and added so much to my experience that I just could not wait to reach each illustration as we went. And yeah, so that added a really fun aspect. I did this immersively because Michael Kramer is just great voicing Hoyd, who is the narrator. And so I just had a blast with this. It's full of Hoyd's witticisms, which I know a lot of people don't love, but I do tend to really enjoy those. And it was just a really nice, cozy, fantasy almost throwback fable that was a really fun adventure that was plotted with, very tightly as Sanderson is wont to do, and I got attached to the characters more so than I think I normally do with Sanderson reads. Probably more than I did with all of the Mistborn Era 2 characters, my most recent Sanderson read. And so yeah, loved this read and can't wait to keep going with these secret projects when I get these beautiful premium special editions, which I just love with the naked hardbacks and the nice faux leather feel. Yeah, I prefer these to the more expensive leather bounds, and so couldn't be happier with secret projects so far. I don't think I could have gone into a more different read than Jade City by Fonda Lee. So I'm doing the TBR Blitz Readathon in the Keymark Discord this month, and it's great because it's getting me to hit some things that have been on my TBR for the longest time. And when I got back into adult fantasy, I was seeing Greenbone Saga everywhere. I picked this up, I think, in 2019, and have been waiting on it for a long time. And I think I've been worried that I just wasn't in the mood for an organized crime story, even though I love The Sopranos, one of my favorite TV shows, but I just haven't been in the mood for that. But I ended up having an awesome time with this, and I should not have been worried because Fonda Lee does something so interesting with the take on organized crime, because in this real world adjacent setting, she takes inspiration from our world's organized crime syndicates, but does something completely new with them. The clans in Kikon in this world were integral in fighting for Kikon's independence and basically made agreements with the different clans and with the politicians at the time that they would be separate from the politics of the island and would be still integral in the island's overall governance and society and work hand in hand with the politicians and business people and provide services. And it is way more complex than I ever imagined it would be. It's not these clans that have to hide in the shadows and are doing illegal things. It's so much more interesting than that. And that world building is one of the highlights of this read. But also it was very easy to get attached to a lot of the characters. The characters in this just jump off the page as three-dimensional and complex and believable. And it's easy to root for some, to really loathe some others, maybe to be in between on some of the ones who we get POVs from. And that's really interesting that, we're not nudged to just immediately love all different characters and different readers attached to different characters. And that's definitely a nod to Fonda Lee's character skill in this book. But honestly, by about halfway through, I started to get invested in all of the No Peak clan family members that we follow. And now I am just so invested in this clan and family drama. And I'm so pumped to keep going with Jade War next month. I'm bought into the hype. Can't wait to continue. The next read is a real oddity, and that is Adrian Tchaikovsky's new release novella, And Put Away Childish Things. So if you see the cover, you can probably guess maybe about some of what this is about or what's going to happen in there. Because I want to be careful with spoilers, but it is set in our real world in 2020. Just as the COVID outbreak is happening in England, the main character is a D-list TV host for a kids' TV program, and he's fairly unlikable. I think intentionally supposed to be very unlikable. He just does not have much purpose in life, doesn't have much going on in his life. He is the grandson of a famous author that is a fictional author, but it's supposed to be like if another kind of Chronicles of Narnia series had been written and popular in the 20th century, and now this is the grandson of the very famous fantasy author. And it has some Portal fantasy aspects. There's a fawn that pops up in this guy's life very early on, and he's like, "What's going on? I know this. My grandmother's books were all fictional, but this looked like one of the characters from there." And so that provides some of that initial mystery, and just hijinks ensue from there. And what was so interesting was that I almost DNF'd this in the first half because I just had a hard time getting engaged, fully invested in it, and I did not really love the POV character. But halfway through, there was some interesting character growth and developments, and the plot really kicked in, and I ended up being so invested in the second half. It's just about 200 pages, and so that last 100 pages, I really got into it and was in suspense, and by the end, I was left wanting more. I ended up having a good time with it, and so I think I gave it 4 stars, and I would not tell you to, spend a lot of money for the hardcover since it's just a small novella, or, go out of your way to read this and break your TBR for it like I would for Ogres, which is just a tremendous novella. But this was fun and weird and interesting, and if the setup sounded like something you might go for it, there's a lot of voice and humor throughout, and I think if you're in the mood for that, this might really hit the spot. So this one might just be for Adrian Tchaikovsky completionists like me, because he's one of my favorite authors. I want to read everything he's written, and so this is my attempt to stay a little bit ahead and not have to catch up on everything. But very weird, interesting, and fun read. So yeah, not one I think I'm going to remember too much going forward, but it was fun. That takes me to the book I just finished and had an awesome time with, which is The Severing Sun by Vaughn Roycroft. This is a pretty new release, self-pub, new epic fantasy in the mold of John Gwynn's The Faithful and the Fallen, and I think Roycroft had the entire trilogy kind of drafted and written before releasing this one, so I believe book 2 is going to be released somewhat soon. Not sure exactly when, but I am so excited about that because I am pumped to continue this one. There's no audiobook for this one yet, so I did it fully in print, and it just kept on drawing me back to it and wanting me to get back in and to keep going with these characters and see what happened. And I do almost everything hybrid these days with the print and audio going, so I'm fully immersed in the book, whether I'm lying down at home reading or out and about or doing chores. And the fact that this print book was kept on calling to me, and that the audio read I was doing just did not take over, is a credit to the quality of this story. It had an almost comfort feel to me to sink in to this story with some main characters that I could so closely empathize with, identify with, and root for. So it's not like grimdark at all. It's not like, the Greenbone Saga where, there's various shades of gray to a lot of the characters. There's a very loathsome, clear villain who's easy to root against. And then there's these youngish, late teen protagonists who I found so easy to get behind fully. And I just love that type of fantasy. That's really my favorite type, honestly. And so I got so much of that here. There was just tremendous fast pace to this book. There was so much that happened. This feels like it could almost be a standalone, and for it to be satisfying. So this book 1 had a fully satisfying arc to it in a way that most book 1s do not. And so it just moves a mile a minute. It's like if Malice of the Faithful and the Fallen were condensed into just a few chapters, and then we go off to the races like we do in Valor. So for people who thought Malice was maybe a little too slow for them in the build-up, and that there are maybe too many locations and factions and characters to get your handle on, this one might be perfect for you because it's much more focused than that. There's only a couple locations, they're all close to each other. There's not that many POV characters, and the side characters are so distinctive that it's really easy to know who the different players are and just to get a feel for the political situation. And so it's really easy to get into the story and the world. And I think based on how it ended that we're going to get more of a world-building expansion going forward. The writing's very accessible. I thought the writing was elegant in some places with some great turns of phrase, but it's more like John Gwynn's, invisible vehicle to just tell the story of these characters' journeys. And the character work is the highlight because sometimes I might have been expecting certain side characters to have just, been a little bit of a cliche and been like, okay, this character's like this and they're going to do this. And then I was continually surprised by their complexity and depth and taking actions that just hit me by surprise. And so that was one of the biggest delights of this book and one of Roycroft's real strengths as a fantasy author, I think. Just deeper, more complex character work than you would normally think for a story that seems at first like, it is relying on a lot of classic fantasy tropes. And just things like that John Gwynn did so well are here in spades. And the one-on-one fighting and duels are also a highlight in here. I know Philip Chase said one of the duels is one of the single best fights in literature he's ever read, and I agree that Roycroft is really strong with those one-on-one fights, but maybe less strong with the larger scale battle scenes. I read a lot of great battle writers like Cornwell and Gwynn and Erickson who set the scene with the size of the forces and the geography and the locations and the flow of battle really clearly that I can visualize. I think I couldn't visualize these battles very well and took a little of the suspense and tension away from them. But those are not a main focus of this story. It's more about these characters' journeys and overcoming their personal identity crises and their obstacles and challenges. The main character, Valdon, has fantastically enhanced anger issues and that he's constantly falling prey to. And his guardian, his friend Elon, is constantly pulling him back from that, bringing him back to himself. And their dynamic was so touching and innocent and just really such a highlight for me reading this. And I can't wait to keep going because of those types of character dynamics that felt so comforting and inspiring, honestly. So yeah, what a tremendous self-pub debut. This could easily be traditionally published. And if you are a fan of John Gwynn, like that heroic style of fantasy, I definitely saw some inspirations from Wheel of Time in here as well. The main character feels like a bit of an amalgamation of Rand and Corban from Faithful and the Fallen. So yeah, if you like Wheel of Time, Faithful and the Fallen, or both of those, this one might hit that intersection point really well. It's definitely low fantasy, where there's not a lot of magic, but there is a prophecy at the heart of this, and there does seem to be some magical elements, around the edges of people's lives influencing things, but magic is not really present in the story most of the time. So it's definitely low fantasy, but secondary world that feels interesting and fresh. If any of that sounds interesting, definitely give The Severing Sun a try. I want to mention the book I'm currently reading. That is Gentleman Bastards #2, Red Seas Under Red Skies. I'm more than halfway in this one, but I've been doing it mostly on audio on the side of The Severing Sun, and so I might just keep that audio going because Michael Page is a delight. This book, I think, has finally got me hooked to Scott Lynch's writing. I didn't love the plotting of Lies of Locke Lamora, and the beginning of this one, maybe I was still skeptical that I was ever going to love this series, but maybe about halfway through, it all clicked, and just the witticisms, the cleverness in the writing, the humor, the interesting character dynamics, the mystery box plotting, I think I'm finally on board with. And so, yeah, this is now hitting the spot for me, and I am hopeful that'll just continue on into book 3, and with the new novellas that he's releasing, and hopefully the next book on the way soon now that he's publishing again. So yeah, really excited that I have finally clicked with Scott Lynch. and I think I might start today Ship of Magic. It's been a few years since I finished the Farseer trilogy. The time has come at last to continue my journey with Realm of the Elderlings. I'll have a chat in a couple weeks about this book with Colin's Corner, so can't wait for that. And yeah, I am so excited to dive in. I'll have, I guess, 2 nautical fantasies going at the same time, so good thing I enjoy that and love it. Yeah, give me more nautical fantasy. All right, so let me know what you think about any of those books that you saw, and if you're happy with how things turned out for me. But yeah, I'll catch you later.